The last living U.S. ace of World War II? Talking aces can be fighting words to many, but I think the media has gotten it wrong recently, and I want to tell you about the last living World War II ace who just passed away, and it might not be who you think on this episode of Taking Off. Hi, I'm Dan Milliken, and the finest generation is disappearing. And I want to talk about a brave man who was, in my opinion, the real last living ace. And I'll explain what I mean in this video. Before revealing who was the last United States ace from World War II to pass away, let's talk about Don McPherson, the hero who many have reported as our last ace. But there was one other. In talking about aces, it can be a bit controversial with the fog of war, the overclaiming confirmed kills and all that. So I want to make this clear. These men, these aces from World War II, were the epitome of heroes. They answered the nation's call and they selflessly served so that we could have freedom here in the United States. And all of them, they are heroes. And for those who may not really know, what is an ace? The term originated in World War I when French newspapers referred to a certain French pilot who had shot down 5 enemy aircraft as an ace. And the term stuck and was defined as a pilot credited with destroying 5 or more enemy aircraft in aerial combat. But there were times destroying aircraft on the ground counted as well, and we'll get into that. In the U.S. military, for kills to be confirmed, the enemy aircraft had to be seen to crash, or seen to disintegrate in air, seen to have descended into friendly territory and captured, or pilot and crew seen to bailed out. All right, now back to McPherson. He passed away on August 14th, 2025 at the age of 103. He served in World War II aboard the carrier Essex CV-9, flying the Hellcat, the F-6F, out of the VF-83 squadron. McPherson enlisted in the Navy in early 1943, and he earned his wings in August of that year. In March 1945, he was flying combat during the Battle of Okinawa. And out on his first mission, he was struck by anti-aircraft fire, but was able to fly back to the Essex and land. A 20-millimeter cannon shell had penetrated the fuselage about a foot behind McPherson, and he severed a control cable to the tail. His squadron flew over 6,000 sorties between March and June of 1945. McPherson became an ace on May 5th. He had downed 2 Val dive bombers earlier in April, and then 3 ALF float planes loaded for kamikaze missions. He earned 3 distinguished flying crosses. And after the war, he married the love of his life, and he served as a letter carrier and lived a distinguished and well-respected life. When Don passed away this August, many news articles and stories talked about him being the last living World War II ace. And no shade on him, a true hero. But I want to point out another hero who passed away just a few weeks ago, who I consider the last living U.S. ace of World War II. But before that, I've got a new sponsor I'm excited about who helps make these videos possible. Check it out. Hey guys, I used to shave with one of the mainstream cartridge companies, but I hated spending all that money on very expensive refills. Now, back when the clubs started interrupting the shaving industry, I jumped all over that. And I did it for a couple of years with that monthly cost. I rolled back my membership to every other month, skipping shaving when possible to save cartridges from wearing out so quickly. I stashed disposables at the studio here and even in my car. I went ahead and tried a different club, and it was even worse. Finally, a third club, and that was strike 3. I was out. And I reluctantly went back to one of the major industry manufacturers and shelled out the money for replacement cartridges. I needed a solution to expensive, mediocre shaves. Then Henson reached out to me. Henson Shaving. You see, I had been downgrading and in the long run spending a lot of money. With Henson, I upgraded to a more engineered, precision, skin-friendly shave, and the blade refills are pennies, not bucks like everything else. Like 10 cents, for real. upgraded, and spend less in the long haul. After years of frustration, problem solved, the Henson AL13 in blue, for me, is my forever solution. I'm grateful for finding Henson, and you can too. I've got a QR code on the screen, and you can use my code TakingOff for 100 free blades, and that's a couple of years of blades. A couple of years for not having to pay for expensive refills, club memberships, and all that. Hoo-ha. Scan the QR or click on the link below. Use code TakingOff for 100 free blades, Henson Shaving. Okay, so who was the last living ace? Well, we defined ace earlier, and there were times that ground kills were included in aerial combat kills. In the European theater in the spring of 1944, the Allies were in full preparation for the upcoming invasion of France. The U.S. 8th Air Force was tasked with achieving air superiority over the German Luftwaffe. After January of 1944, the Luftwaffe had trouble contesting every bombing run, so fighter escorts would drop down looking for targets of opportunity, and German airfields were heavily defended and risky for the Allied fighter pilots. So to encourage the young men to take the risk, the 8th created a policy of awarding victories for aircraft destroyed on the ground. Of course, this created great controversy, which exists all the way to today. And I want to talk about a fighter pilot from the 8th Air Force who just passed away at 101 on September 14th, 2025. You see, I had filmed a documentary for Arrowverse and had met and interviewed this pilot. And make sure you check out arrowverse.com for great aviation content. I had the pleasure to sit down with Huey Lamb Jr. in Central Texas a year and a half ago to hear his incredible story. Huey Lamb, the last living World War II ace.
Of course, during World War II, every young fellow my age basically wanted to get into the service. There were 3 of us that wanted to be pilots. We talked it over, so we withdrew from A&M, signed up to go into the cadet training program, and about a month later, all 3 were recalled the same day. One of my buddies had flat feet, so they put him in the infantry. Another buddy he was colorblind, so they put him in the field artillery, and I'm the only one of the 3 that passed the physical, and that's the way I got started into the Corps. And I was 18, I guess, when we were all 18 when we volunteered.
Huey Lamb was born in 1924 and he grew up in Abilene, Texas. He graduated from flight school in 1944 and was assigned to the 78th Fighter Group out of Duxford, England. He first flew the P-47 Razorbacks and the P-47Ds, and he got his first kills in those, including an Me-262, the world's first jet fighter. And Huey was one of the first pilots to shoot one down.
And we were heading back at 15,000 feet, and I saw a bogey down 6 o'clock low. I called it out. And he said, I can't see it. He said, you check it out and I'll cover you. I said, that's all he had to say. So I dove down and I started chasing this bogey, which turned out to be an Me-262. And he was indicating over 500 because I was going about 490. And I hit water injection. I gained a little bit, but if he'd have had enough fuel and kept going straight, he could have run away from me. But he turned back to his airfield, and when he did, I was able to turn inside him and get pretty close. And he led me over his field, and by that time I was probably 100 feet from him. But I only had my 2 inboard guns firing because I was out of ammunition. With those, I hit his left engine. We were about 100 feet above the ground, and he went right in. And when he did, I pulled up, and Don said, get back down, because they started shooting at me.
He was credited with 2.5 kills in the air and 3 on the ground in the P-47, and then his squadron transitioned over to the P-51 Mustang. In his first mission in the P-51, he had trouble over the channel and had to ditch.
And I was bringing back my wingman that day. We had already crossed the North Sea, and we were heading back. His radio was out, so I had to bring him back. My coolant started getting hot, caught fire, and I was about 10,000 feet at that time. So I was over the North Sea, and I started to open my canopy to bail out, and for some reason the handle kept spinning on me. I don't know why it did. You're not supposed to, but it did. Finally it caught in those clogs. I got it open and I was unbuckled. I was too low to bail out. And I headed into the wind and stalled it out just above the ocean there. And one of the waves caught my right wing and I cartwheeled. And when I did, it stopped immediately. I stood up and got out. I was thinking, well, this airplane's gonna pull me down. I don't know why I thought that. Pulled my May West, and it inflated. And then I was able to get my dinghy, which is a little rubber boat, but I was too weak to pull into it. So I was just hanging on to the dinghy. And John, being smart, without a radio, he headed in to shore. He knew of an airfield near there, and it just happened to be a little flying boat called a walrus taxiing. He landed, kept the engine running, and went over to the guy and told him that he had a man down, he'd lead him to me. He found me out there in the water, and that little walrus was able to pick me up and bring me back into that airfield, Marshall Heath. The only damage I got was a cut lip and a chipped tooth, and it so happened that the doctor there was a plastic surgeon, and he sewed it up just perfect. That's the only damage I had.
He had named his Mustang Etta Jean. Who is she? Not who you thought.
Everybody named their plane. I named it after my sister. I have a little sister who was 4 years younger, so I guess that'd make her about 16. And I thought that'd be great, so that's what I did. I named it after my sister. Probably the only guy that did that.
After World War II, Huey was recalled to Korea, but he never saw action. He retired from the Air Force as a lieutenant colonel in 1984. An owner of a P-51 decided to honor this hero, and he had his P-51 painted like Huey's World War II plane.
It was a real surprise. About 15 years ago, a friend of mine invited me to come out to base here at Georgetown. He said, I want to show you something. So he didn't tell me what it was. And we came to this hangar, sitting there, and I heard a noise. I said, that sounds like a P-51. And then all of a sudden, this plane comes in, does a peel off, and comes in and lands and taxis right up to the hangar, and it was Etta Jean II. And I said, man, this is unusual. 78th Fighter Group plane here in Georgetown. I'm amazed when I see Etta Jean II, because Chad and his group did such a great job of painting it perfectly. I added the 3 extra crosses to it because they were ground support, ground kills, and everybody added those during the war. Of course, I really feel proud of, and I've been able to go with Robert in it many flights where we do aerobatics and chandelles and loops and wingovers and all kinds of aerobatics. And if he doesn't do it right, I tell him. And so far, I haven't had to tell him anything. If I had the controls, I'd show him.
I realize it can be controversial in counting kills for aces, but I think we can all agree that these men were true heroes. And after a long life, they have now flown west. Tailwinds and blue skies, gentlemen, you served well. Is there someone else that is really the last living ace of World War II? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I enjoy learning a little more about the finest generation. And make sure you go to arrowverse.com to see the story of Huey and Etta Jean II. And thanks again to our new sponsor, Henson's Shaving. Get your 100 free blades with the link below. And also Marshall Protective Services, mpsprotects.com. And if you enjoyed this report, check out our other one right here. Thanks for watching, and remember, superior judgment trumps superior skills. Take care.